By the end of this episode, you'll understand the 5 categories of AI features that technology companies are actually launching in 2025. From small improvements to AI native applications to AI first products. I was inspired to do this episode after a great piece by Rich Holmes on the Department of Product Substack. It was published last week and analysed 25 big product launches by massive companies like Google, Notion, Microsoft, Stripe, LinkedIn, and many, many more. I've then shaped this thinking a little bit based on what we're seeing in the market today, because we're working with many technology companies and helping them build AI features faster. This is In the Loop with Jack Horton. I hope you enjoy the show. The first category that I'm going to discuss is called UX enhancers or embedded UX enhancers. And I guess what distinguishes this category from other types of features is that they're either often completely invisible in the background and just pop up and appear at the right moment. So they'll appear contextually with small pop-ups and widgets that just help me do something or solve a bit of a pain point that I would normally experience when using that type of technology solution. And as Rich Holmes broke down in his piece, these features are not trying to get users to engage with the product in a completely new way. They're just solving smaller jobs and tasks for people that are really just annoying. And I guess work as a layer on top of that user interface that's already been built. So let's discuss some examples that will help you understand what I mean here. Kindle launched a recap feature which perfectly exemplifies what we're talking about. It aimed at solving the challenge and the problem of narrative continuity between books. So that moment maybe when you pick up a book in a series, many months after reading the last one. And so then you kind of forget a lot about what's happened, and maybe you therefore just don't even pick up that book and you stop reading it altogether. Rather than forcing people to say, go online, read a summary, or try and recap what they actually read previously, or maybe even abandon the series altogether, Kindle now generates automatically this concise little summary of the previous book as soon as you open the new one. What makes this quite clever is that it's contextually relevant. It only really appears when it's actually needed and doesn't interrupt the core reading experience of a person. It doesn't ask readers to change how they use the product. It just removes a simple pain point that's annoying and does so that adds very little new user interface or buttons to press or screens to visit. Another great example mentioned by Rich Holmes was Google Chrome, who recently launched an on-device AI system using their Gemini model. And essentially what it's doing is trying to catch security threats in real time. So when it detects something suspicious, maybe like a support scam or a phishing attempt, it just pops up and tells you. And it doesn't interrupt your browsing experience. It's not trying to create a separate feature area or product area that makes you actively have to engage with it. It's just a widget that is directly integrated into that normal browsing experience. Another great example was referenced by a fantastic product thinker by Akash Gupta. And he talks about a company called Attio. So Attio, for those that don't know it, is a CRM, so helping people manage sales deals. And what they've done really cleverly is implement AI in a way that's just super helpful. And they're growing really fast in what is an extremely crowded market. And they're up against the likes of Salesforce in deals and winning. An example of this enhanced UX, embedded UX AI feature is that when a user creates maybe a new automation on their platform, the system automatically summarizes the automation and gives it a description and a name and a summary based on what it's supposed to be doing. The user isn't having to do anything. It's just a small thing at the top left of the screen. There's no flashing AI badge, no special interface you have to learn. It's just a small amount of magic and delight when users realize that what was previously a very tedious step is now just done for them. Another example is by Attio again. So when someone responds to an email coming through their system and says, I'm busy all week to the salesperson, Attio's system automatically adjusts the scheduling, so immediately sending out another time and another option for them. Again, super simple, but really helpful. And so to bring it back to my point, this first category of enhanced UX and embedded UX often feels invisible in the background and pops up with a widget on your screen to give you that help you need. And as Akash Gupta put it, these companies, instead of saying to themselves, how do we add AI to everything? It's actually them asking, how can we add AI that makes this experience just feel a bit magical? The former leads to random bolted on capabilities that feel misjointed and us as users feel like, why have they done this? This is pointless. whereas the latter question drives a complete reimagination of a product's experience for people. And the common thread here is that all of these examples are an integration with existing experiences. They don't ask a user to fundamentally change their behavior. And these implementations often represent one of the lowest technical barriers to entry for new AI features for a company, because they're simply improving what exists already. But meanwhile, it's not a low impact change. These are really nice touches that just feel magical to a person. And the beauty of this is that, in essence, these are just an AI agent, a workflow, a set of tools, an ability to trigger based on a thing that happens in their product. Instead of that output from an agent and a workflow being text in a chat component or in a chat widget like ChatGPT or another chat interface, it just appears in their existing user interface. So if I take that down a level and make this really tangible by explaining how an Attio does something like that. First, an agent is created, which loves to summarize things. That's its purpose. It also will respond, its text responses will be structured in very concise ways with clear bullet points, for example, because it loves to have very concise summaries. It then has a set of skills too, which are basically workflows. These workflows will trigger based on a user in their platform doing a specific thing. In this case, it's them creating an automation in Attio's platform. The agent then recognizes that a user's just done this automation and immediately triggers. It fires off maybe a signal to the agent and says, time to do your summarization. And then the agent will decide to use the workflow it's got access to, so the summarization workflow. And step one of that workflow will be to trigger based on a user doing something, as I said. Step two might be to summarize the automation. Step three was to reorganize it and rewrite it. Step four was to publish it. And again, that summary doesn't appear in a conversation or a chat window. It appears in a user interface of Attio, or a little widget pops up and says, here's the summary. I understand this so intimately because we're actually launching something that does this type of thing next month. So a workflow builder plus new widgets that can appear and be embedded on SaaS companies' platforms. Anyway, so let's move on to another category of feature. This is agents that control existing functionality on a platform. So this second category really represents a very fundamental shift in how users will interact with software that's already been built. So agents that don't just, answer a user's question, but actively controls and operates an interface based on what a user needs to complete. So rather than a user navigating very complex user interface that's quite frustrating, these agents allow people to speak to what is a chatbot essentially, in natural language. And the agent just does it for them by controlling the features on that application. So a great example here is what Stripe just launched, which is their dashboard assistant. Again, this was discussed by Rich Holmes in the Department of Product Substack article. So this dashboard assistant or agent enables someone like a merchant using Stripe, so a vendor that sells things, to simply type refund transaction ABC 12345. And then the agent will just navigate to the appropriate section of the dashboard, locate the transaction, kick off the refund process. Maybe in the conversation, we'll come back to the human and say, do you want me to process this? Press confirm, and it's done. So suddenly creating products, updating pricing, and managing admin tasks using Stripe's existing interface is really simple. And a key takeaway here is that, I guess for decades, companies have built products around user interface with buttons and forms and drop downs and things like that. And as a user, we have to learn where something's located on their app, how to complete certain tasks using the forms they provide. And what often starts as an extremely innovative solution often becomes incredibly frustrating for us as users because we get so used to it, we now expect something better. And that's why agents controlling existing features that a company's already built is so magical. Users don't always have to go and find out how to create and send a financial report, which is located somewhere in Stripe's application. They just need to have an agent on the side, ask it a question, and say, where is this thing? Gets taken to that area and says, now complete and send that financial report to X people. Because the features are already built to do that, the agent can control those features and execute that task. So for SaaS companies that are really big and have been around for a while, this approach offers a really compelling strategy to compete with these agent-first SaaS applications and SaaS startups that are launching pretty much every week. And rather than having to rebuild every inch of their experience from scratch, they can layer on these agent interfaces on top of their existing functionality, which leverages their core IP and technological advantage that they've built up over many years, whilst delivering a conversational experience and interface that users now want. And this is why I'm so excited to launch a closed invite-only beta program of this functionality in late June, early July. It's something that I think is going to be the future of many SaaS applications. And I think this is going to be one of the core important strategies our SaaS customers are going to have to take over this next 12 months as they start to launch brand new products and AI experiences throughout the course of the next few years. And I'll come on to what I mean by this in just a few minutes. Now, if I was in the product team at one of these companies, I'd be asking myself and the team, which part of our product requires the most training? Which parts of our product gets the most questions asked about it? And how can we take away that complexity with natural language agents that control that experience? So it represents an extremely high quality opportunity for agents that control features. Anyway, moving on to the third type of AI feature that we're seeing getting launched. This is task or use case or role-based agents which are able to automate specific tasks in separate systems. What distinguishes this category from others is that it's very laser focused on specific jobs to be done or a job function, job role, or a task. For example, the sales outreach agent. So I'll dig into a couple of examples here. A sales software called SalesLoft recently launched a bunch of agents. And essentially this tool, as its core product offering, helps sales reps make calls to people to sell things. And now they launched these agents to help these salespeople do jobs that currently SalesLoft don't really support. For example, the agents they've launched can read into Salesforce or HubSpot and do things in there. It can also push things into communication channels. It can also write new emails for them. So an agent that does many of the specific tasks that they would have to do at work. LinkedIn's approach is also another good example. They've launched multiple specialized agents for different user segments of their product. Their latest is a dedicated interview preparation agent on their platform that helps basically job seekers practice for interviews. And what's particularly interesting about these use case or domain specific agents is that they enable these technology companies to extend their value proposition, their offering beyond their core product functionality. So for example, Microsoft launched their deep research agent that allows people to research all of their internal SharePoint information, for example, but also allows them to search externally through web sources and the internet. This would have been the domain of Google, not Microsoft. So what's really interesting here is companies are suddenly able to expand into other markets, segments, jobs to be done that they previously would have had to build all of this user interface around and would have taken years to deliver. But now they can just build a single agent, launch it, sell it, and deliver value quite fast. Now, good product teams at these companies should really start by identifying different user segments with specific recurring needs. So ask themselves, what are the highest value jobs to be done that someone would love to give away? And importantly, what do we think AI could do well? So certain things AI will always be, or might be for a long time, just rubbish at. So AI might be able to produce lots of content, but it often lacks context. So really think through what they can be really good at. And this really would help prioritize worthy investments in AI agents for specific tasks or job functions. So we've had over, say, 200 AI coaches and tutors built on our product and launched into other technology company solutions. So type 4 I'm going to spend very little time on because it kind of blends into other categories, but type 4 really is Gen AI first features. This was covered again by Rich Holmes in the Department of Product article. And a really good example here is how Google, or Google Hangouts, shall I say, has just launched their Generate with AI feature. So you can now change your background, but generate it with AI language models. So you can ask it to create a pirate background or a football field background. Another great example is Spotify, which launched their AI DJ feature. And now you can speak to it and ask it to produce a playlist for certain moods or certain types of situations. Again, you could argue this blends into other categories, and hence I'm not going to spend too much time in this episode on that. I'm now going to move on to the final category we're seeing getting launched in the market today, and that's AI native standalone applications. Now, these aren't upgrades to existing products. They are entirely new experiences built from the ground up with AI capabilities. And what distinguishes these products from other types of features is that they're a fundamental re-architecture and rethinking about how an application can work. These are often reimagining entire product categories based on what becomes possible from AI. And a great example of this is Google's Notebook LM, which is discussed by Richard Holmes. And it isn't just an enhancement by Google to, let's say, the Google Drive features. or a note-taking app. It's a fundamentally new way of looking and experiencing information. You can quite literally upload books, videos, documents, and turn it into a podcast. You can extract insights, identify patterns, whatever you need to do, and really enables you to have a conversation with that piece of information. You also see this pattern in marketing tools like Jasper and Copy AI, which are marketing tools built around AI experiences, and they're not just adding AI to a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document. They're creating entirely new experiences and solutions to create content optimized for AI workflows. These applications aren't constrained by legacy approaches or user expectations. They're completely free to reimagine how something should work. Now, for big and established technology companies with tens of thousands of customers, these standalone applications represent both the probably greatest opportunity long term, but also the greatest risk. And that's because an AI company or an AI startup that launches one of these types of new products that are reimagined, it could make your entire category or even set of products obsolete. But meanwhile, it can also present a huge opportunity for you as an established player to launch a new product into the market and completely dominate. But they also open up new possibilities for big companies to launch offerings that previously weren't very feasible. Fundamentally, this is a long-term play that some companies will do, many companies won't be able to do because of resource constraint, because of how much risk is involved, and eventually will probably acquire other startups. Anyway, that's it for today. I've gone through those top 5 categories. I hope that was interesting. Thanks for listening, and I'm going to see you next week.